Hello, and welcome to a deep dive into mail marketing. My name is Sarah Perry. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to get right into it. So, as I always say, let's dive in. What is the value of mail marketing? Why should you even care about it in 2023? Look, I get it. I totally do. But over the last 3 years, thanks to COVID, unfortunately, direct mail and EDDM, Every Door Direct Mail, have been on an uptrend. And that is basically because we kind of got overwhelmed with the digital media in 2020 because we were stuck at home. And the statistics show that because all of these stats are from anywhere between 2020 and 2023. And what's really interesting about a few of these statistics from the USPS is they are actually from a whole report that I'm going to actually link in the description of this video. That is a generational study that goes Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z. It's fascinating. I totally encourage you to check it out. But some really interesting stats that I thought were just interesting to highlight are these couple here. So 41% of Americans look forward to checking their mailbox on the daily. Thank you, COVID. So this statistic is very interesting because no matter what it is, 41% of Americans just look forward to it. Now, on top of that, over 90% of promotional mail from local businesses is opened by the Boomer, Gen X, and Millennial generations. So there you go, promotional from local businesses. And what's really, really interesting, got to get the Gen Zs in here, is that 46% of Gen Zs are likely to post an impressive looking package on social media. I absolutely love that stat. I had to put that in here. But for a little bit more business minded and to kind of hammer in a little bit more of the value of direct mail for businesses is that when you combine the digital side and the physical side, so for instance, using email and a mailed catalog together had a 49% sales lift and 125% lift in inquiries. That's from Harvard Business Review, guys. So nothing to scoff at there. And then direct mail receives the highest ROI, return of investment, of 112% across all mediums. The only other medium that is above 100% is SMS. That's text message. And they're right around I think it's 102. Don't quote me on that. But direct mail and EDDM are giving a really, really high return. And not even email hits that. They're below 100%. So here's some great value and some cool stats on the value of mail marketing. So what is the difference between direct mail and Every Door Direct Mail? Here they are. There are some key differences, and it's important to know them because you can really get yourself into a bind if you don't know the difference. To start with, direct mail marketing is great for highly targeted mailings. They need addresses because you need to actually mail to a person or business. Now, there's very few design restrictions, and really when it comes to design, the sky's the limit on it. There's a couple quantity minimums. Well, really, there's only one quantity minimum that you need to kind of meet. But if you don't meet it, you can still mail. It's just your postage rate is not going to be as low. And speaking of postage rates, they will vary based on your mail piece size and weight. And that's because obviously the design restrictions are a lot more open. Now, the one of the few downfalls of direct mail marketing is that if you do need to purchase a mailing list, mailing lists can be expensive based on the type of demographics and also size, number of, listees that you want to purchase. On the flip side, Every Door Direct Mail is the great equalizer to direct mail. If you don't want a list, you don't really need a list, this is a great way to go. So again, no need for a list. It's actually targeted by mail carrier routes. I'll explain more of that as we get into this, but it doesn't need a list, and you basically just go on the route that your mail carrier goes. The other advantage of Everydoor direct mail is that it does have a lower postage rate overall compared to like the pre-sorted rates on direct mail side. Some downfalls a little bit on it is that there is a little bit more restrictions on Everydoor direct mail, and that is there is a minimum quantity and there is also a daily like max quantity if you go with like a retail version. Now there is kind of like a what you would call like enterprise business level, and it's not necessarily something that's like a big limiter for you to like meet. It's just the postage can be a little bit higher, and there's a couple other things. Now, when it comes to size requirements for it, they are a little bit more specific, and you do need to meet them. And the final downfall of Everydoor direct mail is that if you get the wrong mail carrier routes, it can really just tank your ROI. So there's good and bad on both sides, and these both types of mailings can work, chef's kiss, incredibly well for businesses. I have seen them personally work amazingly. So there's pros and cons to both. Okay, so let's focus in on direct mail specifically and talk about the guidelines and requirements for that. There's not a ton going on for direct mail, but there is some important things that you do need to be aware of. First and foremost, the big thing is that if you want to get that like discounted rate, you'll want to go over the 200 minimum. Otherwise, you're going to still be using the regular like postage stamp, whatever it is at the time. Right now, I think it's in the 50 cent range, somewhere in there in May of 2023. If you're watching this in the future, obviously, drop in the comments what the postage rate is now, because I am plumb curious. Anyway, I digress. So when it comes to your quantity, there is no really max quantity for direct mail. It's just hitting that minimum. Where a lot of the postage rate will come from is the actual size and weight of your piece. I'll talk about that here in a moment. Before that, what I want to address though is the addressing. Regardless of whatever size your piece is, if you do like a postcard, for instance, which just as a forewarning, I will focus a lot on postcards because those have the most variable. When you're doing postcards, you're gonna really need to focus on making sure that you essentially have a 4 3/4 by 2 3/4 like rectangle on the one side of your design, so that way you have it for the addressing along with the like barcode area, so when it does go through the processing and everything. The other part of this is you will need to have a spot for the postage indicia or the postal permit, whatever you like to call it. So that is going to be typically, you can put it up in the top right corner. That's like the traditional spot. I have seen it personally. We've done it at Third Angle where we have put it in this area here. It is safe. It does pass through the design approval. So as long as you basically have this clear and it's got space for it. So that is big. Speaking of design approval, you can go ahead and send off your design to the like USPS design approval department. I cannot speak to how long this takes, unfortunately, but the email is here for that. That is mssc@usps.gov. It is a live email and there is a live person at the other end. All right, so when it comes to the different sizes and shapes and all the different things of when you're creating your actual mail piece, there's some terminology mix-up that happens between the USPS and us regular humans. What they considered a postcard is basically just a tiny mail piece. Postcard to them is a minimum of 3.5 inches, and it's like no longer than like 5 inches. So it's basically this little yellow bit here. That's a postcard. When you start getting into a max of 6 1/8, that's when you start getting into the letter, which could also technically, design-wise to us human worlds, could be a postcard. Anything above the 6 1/8 max height is considered a flat. So just those three terms. I'm just saying that so if you hear that from any type of vendor that you work with, it's not necessarily saying that they're creating a letter and envelope for you when they say, oh, your letter will be going out. It's just that's the terms they've used because that's what the USPS uses. In translation, what that means is postcards. Here's the height, weight, and thickness. So it needs to be between 3.5 inches and 4.25 inches for height, and then width is between 5 and 6 inches. So little tiny guys. And then thicknesses are pretty darn thin. So essentially it is a postcard. And they typically have like the lowest postage, which I've got as right now is about 29 cents. I believe there could be some lower rates than the 29 cents, but for the sake of this, I'd rather estimate higher, and you guys get delighted that you get lower postage for this instead of you going, Sarah, I had to pay more. Now on the flip side, the letter is between 3.5 and 6 and 1.25, an eighth, and then 5 and 11.5. So anything above that 6.25 height, that's where that flat comes in. And then your postage rates are going to range wildly, anywhere from 29 cents all the way up to 87 cents. That 87 is when you're getting in the branch of the flat area. And again, all of this is dependent on size and weight and everything. So for instance, if you're mailing something that's like a fat boy envelope that's got something like a sample in it, it's going to cause things to go up in price because the weight might not be necessarily there, but the thickness might be there. Now, when it comes to direct mail, you're going to need a list to send to. When it comes to that, if you purchase a list, you need to be as specific as possible about what your needs and wants are. You can go out and purchase a list on your own, but a lot of mail vendors will be able to purchase a list for you. For instance, we provide that service because that we just want to reach this type of audience and we just don't have the list yet. That's perfectly fine. Just make sure that the more specific you are, it might actually affect the price of your list. So just be aware of that. And the type of audience that you're targeting also might affect that price. So if you're targeting families with young kids, that's going to affect the price. If you're targeting elderly, the more elderly, that's going to affect the price, things like that. And then how many times you're actually going to use that list. I would always make sure that clarify with if you are purchasing from somewhere else or even doing yourself, if you're purchasing for a one-time, a even two-time, or just multiple, because that will also affect the price of the list. And then I will say some list providers will actually, you can get emails attached to these addresses. I don't necessarily agree that this is the best way to get emails, but it is there. And I've been asked this before, so that's why I put it in here. Now, on the flip side, if you do have a customer database, do use it because you've already got the information. Before you use it though, if you do have a larger database, obviously go through it. What type of demographics do you have in there? Just like you would use to go purchase a list, use that same information and use it on your own customer database. You don't want to mail to everybody because past customers may not be your future customers. Get what I'm saying? And then some really good FAQs that I have seen time and time again and heard time and time again is, can I purchase a list but exclude any of my existing customers so I don't have to pay for them? Yes, we've done it a ton of times where we pull up all the information. It's a list of 1,000 people, but you've got this list of 100 people and hey, 80 of them are on this list of 1,000. We can pull that 80 out and you don't have to pay for that. So that's great. Great way to save just a sneaky bit of money. And then can you combine a purchase list and your existing database? Yes, you totally can. And it's great. And then if someone asks to be removed off my mailing list, do I have to take them off? Yes. Don't be a jerk. And then the giant purple letters on screen, I will not ignore any longer. If your list isn't right, it won't matter how amazing your mail piece or offering is. It'll fall flat. Okay? Make sure you're selling to the right people. If you're trying to sell a Lamborghini to minimum wage people, it's not going to work. They're going to dream. Vice versa. So make sure that you're selling on your offer or whatever it is to the right folks. Moving on. On the flip side, we've got EDDM, every door direct mail. I apologize. I will try and say every door direct mail every time, but if I say EDDM and don't say it, this is what I mean. All right, every door direct mail. This is one that has a lot less restrictions in a sense of just like kind of direct mailing stuff and all this with the mailing list, because it doesn't have one. What it does have is a little bit more on the actual like design portion. Mailers must fit one of the following. And if you read this off of the USPS website, it is the funniest sentence to read. So this is why I've done it this way. So your mail piece, it has to have a length greater than 10.5, or a height greater than 6.125, or a thickness greater than 1/4 inch. Yeah. So this is why I have this big old blob of like, these are postcards and sizes of letter envelopes and all that jazz that will fit into the EDDM category here. With that note, EDDM is mostly used with postcards. It's just when you look in your mail, it's gonna be postcards. That isn't to say that they are restricted to postcards. You can send a letter and envelope through and using the EDDM portion. It's just most common for postcards. Most common sizes are going to be these 3 purple ones that you see on screen. So it is 6.5 by 9, 6 by 11, and 8.5 by 11. I can tell you by and large, these 2 sizes of 6 by 11 and 6.5 by 9, I think 90% of all the ones that we order. It is very rare that I have ever seen any of the other sizes at least come through our production line. If you do EDDM, there are 2 buckets you're going to fall into, one of 2. EDDM retail, which is like the 90% of people are going to fall into this bucket. Most of the people are going to do this one. And this is going to fall more into the realm of that like 19 cents-ish area for postage. So this here is actually going to have a minimum of 200 pieces and a max of 5,000 per day. And these will be dropped off at the front counter at your local post office or wherever you're mailing to. So I'll get into that in a moment of what I mean by that. On the flip side, EDDM BMEU, bulk mail, I think it's enterprise unit. Oh, I'm sorry, USPS workers, if you ever watch this, but it's the bulk mail unit. It's the enterprise businessy version of it. The only difference with the BMEU is that 2 differences is there's no max on piece per day, and it is dropped off at the bulk mail unit. You actually go around the backside of the post office, and probably not your normal post office. In Colorado Springs here, there is a office located off of Fountain Boulevard and Academy Boulevard. That is our bulk mail unit. And we get to drop off there. You get to feel really cool because you're by all next to semis. And you feel like you're behind the scenes of the post office. So that's where that gets dropped off. The other thing is that you can drop them off by post office, but if you drop all of your mailings off there and they distribute to the other post offices, it's going to fall more into that higher range there. That's kind of the 2 differences there. Speaking of where post offices are and all of that, now it comes to the choosing the right routes and how do you even choose your routes and know what routes you're going to. The USPS has an amazing free tool that is on their website, and it's eddm.usps.com is where you can go to it. It looks exactly like these 2 screenshots here, depending on like what you've put in here. And it's the long short of it is it allows you to let's say for instance, I put in a zip code here, and it pulled the entire zip code and all of the mailing routes in here. And what I've got going on here is I have 2 routes selected, and they are highlighted in blue. And this all belongs to one post office. As you select more, it'll tell you 2 post office drops, 3, 1, 4, and all that. So if you for instance, if you did a post office, if you did a zip code over here and then you did like one across town, you're most likely going to have to drop at 2 different post offices. And then it'll tell you how many mail pieces. So for instance, this one has 993 mail pieces in it. That is basically saying that you're going to end up having to create 993 mail pieces. And when you get them printed, you're going to have to order 1,000. And then this is the approximated cost of not to produce your postcard, your postage. Okay. That approximated cost is only your postage. That is it. And yes, this next step here will actually take you down the rabbit hole to like close you out and pay for your postage and all that good jazz. Now there's some quick things that I'd like to go through when it comes to understanding how to use this tool, because I will say it's not the most intuitive tool. So when you go onto the tool, and I've got some just kind of tidbits here that I'll go over, what I can do is hopefully alleviate some questions, and you can watch this back when you're on there. When it comes to using the USPS mail tool, what you'll want to do is when you see this residential spot here, this little caret, you can actually select that and drop it down, and you can tell it, I want to only mail to residential or residential and business. You can't just hit businesses. You can only just hit residential. So it's kind of the one funkiness to it. Then what you can do is the other kind of neat little slider tool is that under age, you can tell it to like, I want to see what the percentage of residents are between 34 and 65. So like right now, the routes that I have picked right now, or the route that I have highlighted, the route I have highlighted in purple has a 12.8% of the residents are 25 to 34. Some things to kind of keep in mind is that income levels. So this is the household income level. And that's very, like, depending on what you're selling, this can be very important to you. So that's something I would definitely keep an eye on as you're going through. By default, it'll show you this map tool. What I like to do is that once I figure out my routes, I will remember to write this down, and that is the route 8, like this one's 80917-C008. Your mail vendor will need to know this if they are processing your mailing. So they're going to ask you, what routes do you want? And you're going to need to know that. And if you have a whole bunch selected, the best way I can tell you to look at them is to click on this table, and then it'll show your whole list, and it'll show which ones you've checked off. Oh, and because I nearly forgot, you can put your whole address in here and tell it to do like a radius around it. You can select your addresses. This is really, really, really great for new store openings or just reminding people to say, hey, we're here, come visit us. So great for local businesses. Love EDDM for that. Now, quick FAQs on this whole thing is, do I really have to mail to the entire route? Yes. Cannot skip houses or businesses. That is the one kind of like caveat with EDDM. That is why you get a such cheaper postage rate on it, is they are basically going into all the mailboxes. So that is, yes, you have to mail to every single one. You can't go, well, I only want to do 900. Nope. You got to do 993, which means you get to order 1,000 postcards. The next one is, can I drop off all my postcards at just one post office? Well, it depends. Like I said, for EDDM retail, if you're paying that retail, you have to go to, if you have 2 post offices, you're dropping at 2 post offices because you have to go to the front desk. If you're going to opt for the EDDM BMEU, the business, the bulk mail unit, then yes, you can drop at one spot. You're also going to pay a higher postage rate for that, because essentially you're paying for them to go, I'm going to drive it here, I'm going to drive it there. And then, why did my mail total pieces change? So if you're doing like a series of mailings, and if like your first mailing was 993, and let's say like next month it goes 994 or 992, this is most likely due to something getting built or torn down. It's super common. These are always updated, and that's why when you process, you always want to just double check before It's never going to change like significantly unless I like somehow all of a sudden build like apartment complex and it's like boom, done, and you have like 100 more people. But it's always good to just double check sometimes when you're doing your paperwork on if like how many things have changed each month. Typically it's just going to be like a couple here and there. And then again, just like with your direct mails, if your list isn't right, like if your routes aren't right, it's gonna fall flat. So just to kind of put this in perspective, again, you know you've got areas in your neighborhood, in your cities, in your metros and everything like that, that are going to have higher income to lower income and all these different demographics. Some neighborhoods are very kid-oriented. You've got some retirement neighborhoods. Depending on what you're selling, you're not going to, sell retirement home stuff to the new family neighborhood, So remember, look at your demographics when you are looking on this list. All right, so let's create a great mail campaign. And just as a heads up, right here, we're just going to focus on postcards because, like I said, when it comes to envelope, like letter and envelope, they're a lot more self-explanatory because you basically have the envelope, you put the address, you put the stamp in the spot, and the letter's all contained in there. So postcards are kind of always the anomaly for folks. So how to create a great mail piece? There are 3 parts to this. 3. Keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Use good imagery. And add personalization when you can. Now, my 2 examples here, they don't have personalization. That's fine. We personalize in a different way. We personalize it with this particular audience. For this one are large landowners / ranches. We have cows, so we address that. This postcard was mailed to a newer / higher end neighborhood, so we added imagery that would fit to that neighborhood. So if you can't put names, put something that they would resonate with. Good imagery. Just use good images, please. Just use good images. And then keep it simple. I know these, like this one has a lot of information because this one is kind of a educational piece. But again, keep it simple, okay? Don't put too much information on your postcard. So when it comes to creating a great postcard, how should you do it? All right, so here is my hilarious blank postcard because I didn't want to do any crazy design on it, but this is the front of your postcard. I'm gonna call it the front because it's the big splashy bit. I don't care about the back here. It's probably gonna need to be a photo. Make it big, bold, in your face, amazing, make it resonate with your audience because just like on here, like the cows, it's great. It fits them. This is the style of the homes that happened to be where it was mailing to. Then your logo, if it's fitting for the front, it doesn't have to be there, but again, you do want your brand recognition to be there. And then the giant, why should I care statement? Don't make it about you. Let us do the thing for you. No, it's, are you sick and tired of, there's a reason why those annoying midnight infomercials work. And it's they address that issue, that pain point. Address the pain point. Why? Why should I care? Okay. And then this statement down here, the statement reinforces why this postcard applies to me. Like as the consumer, I'm getting this and going, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I really need this. And then on the back, it doesn't need to be overcomplicated, but you do want to emphasize some good things. So you notice I've got some things organized the way I do. We've got our spot down here to align with the USPS standards. If we're doing a EDDM or the direct mail, you kind of just give it space. And then we've got our logo again right in the middle. We've got your business address stuff here. And then this I think is not utilized enough. It's social proof. If you've got great reviews, show them. Yes, Queen, yes. I had to say it once. But showcase your social proof because in reality, people want to know others have already used you, and if it's one of those where you're very residential focused or area focused and the person is okay with you doing this, you can do like Jane from Rosemont Drive, like that kind of thing. You don't want to put people in danger, share too much info, but you know what I mean. So showcase that the amazingness from other people who have used you. And then at the top here again, why should I care again? Who are you? Why am I getting this? Then your short and sweet elevator pitch. Focus on the benefits, the bennies. Don't kill them with just facts, okay? Enlighten them with the joy that your company will bring them when they use your company, okay? Not we're going to use X, Y, Z, F, A, D, all that, like things to make it better. No, I just want to know when you come and do the thing for me, I'm going to be better off afterwards. And then your super sweet offer. And whatever that is. If it's some sort of, percentage off, whatever it is, I'm not going to get into the offer bits, but make it big, bold, and in your face. And then your next step, make it again super clear. You notice there's not a lot going on down here. Keep it very clear. And these two items here are in a nice, bold color, and that's because I want my viewer to see the super sweet offer and the call, the 555 number. If they read nothing else, I want to see that, because in reality, I want them to see, why should I care? Because of super sweet offer. Call now. Okay, long and short. That's it. That's how you create a great postcard. Now, onto your timing. Okay. Timing, of course, beyond your list, can also be everything. Consider mailing a series of postcards instead of one drop. And there is research to back this. So instead of just dropping one and going, I hope it works, there is research that backs up the fact that when you mail a series of 10 postcards, and about the third one is when you're going to really see some return. And I've noticed 3 and 4 are kind of the ones that are the good ones. I see the most return, and then it dwindles back down, and then you start back up, and it kind of comes back in. So it's kind of like a little wave factor there. Okay. Consider outside factors like weather. This is wonderful for even not outside of the landscaping industry, because it's what gets pigeonholed when people think of weather is, when it rains, I should mail a postcard, because people need their grass trimmed or their weeds taken care of. No, even, if you sell umbrellas, I know that's super specific, but weather can be a motivator for a lot of different things. So if you've just come from wherever you are and it has been a terrible 3 weeks of some kind of weather, use that to your advantage. You know what I mean? Same thing with season. We've already been preconditioned by this by years and years of Black Fridays. So don't too much shy away from that, but play on it. There's a reason why it works. There is a reason why holiday sales go up in that time frame. So really take a look at that. Look at your sales. Maybe it's the end of July when you have a sales spike, and you want to kind of continue that going into August. So, push that into August. Send stuff out before the end of July and into August. Play on that. Then consider how often you're mailing. You don't want to spam them just like everything else, on the digital side. You don't want to send your email too often, but you don't want to send it not too often. So in reality, the typical recommendation is to send mailers out, ideally 3 weeks is kind of where I like to say. You can do every other week, but 3 weeks is a nice, okay, I haven't seen this, I'm starting to forget. Oh, here's that again. Because it's not quite a month. It's not quite every other week. It's a nice middle ground. So every 3 weeks is a great way to kind of keep people, keep you on people's top of mind. And then finally, how to afford your mailing. I had to put a silly clip art in. Sorry, not sorry. So when it comes to affording your mailing, you can mail stuff for as little as $200. And of course it goes up from there. I mean, we all know that. But I completely empathize with trying to make budget. And of course, the old adage of you need to spend money to make money. But in reality, we all still need to eat and pay our employees and, keep the lights on and just keep the business running. So when it comes to affording your mailing, here's a few ways that I have helped my clients already basically make it happen. First thing I like doing is to mail to smaller groups many times. This is something I like doing a lot, and it's because of that series. Again, series works better than just one going, bleh. I think the only ones that work really well is like the hail people, because once it hails, you need your windshield fixed. But if your budget allows for you to essentially mail for 5,000 people, instead of doing 5,000 people in punk one, mail to 500 10 times. You're reaching them 10 different times, and it's a smaller group. And yes, it is a smaller group, but you've also got a smaller sample to kind of understand that group, what works, what doesn't, and after that 10 mailings, you can kind of see, okay, what worked, what didn't. It's a bit more manageable in that sense. Next would be to create one design and order enough to cover all the drops. So it kind of matching the top one there, a common way I like doing this is instead of doing 10 different postcards, what we'll do is order one really great postcard that covers all of the drops. So that way we're ordering in bulk, and because bulk pricing on postcards and things like that tends to be a lot better, you get more bang for buck in that sense. That's a great way to kind of save some cash flow, because repeated on when you're doing your invoicing, when you're paying for this mail processing and stuff, it's a lot cheaper than doing the postcards for 500 every single time. And then the last one I like using is just the reevaluating your list or the mailing schedule. So for direct mailings, trimming your list down if it's too large can cut costs quickly. Obviously, you're reducing your postage and the amount of things going out. It's kind of no brainer. But one way I really like kind of telling folks well, how do I cut people? Well, if you're mailing to folks who are already your customers, don't mail to your super loyal customers if it's something that doesn't have to really apply to them. Just really take a look at who you're mailing to and say, oh, Susie, Jane, Joe, Jim, John, and Billy, and several others. This doesn't really apply to them. Let's nix them on this mailing. And really kind of just scalpel out folks, because you'd be surprised. You could probably cut a good chunk of folks and still get a great list out of there. And it might actually even perform better because you've cut out some of the, I hate to say it, kind of fat out of it. And then for EDDMs, either, cutting a drop date can really just be effective. That's kind of my favorite way to do it. I know it seems really odd when I'm saying send 10 mailings. But super common is to, if you already know, a great example of this is between now and the end of the year, November and December, for us, November and December is kind of a nightmare situation for us. We're processing a lot of things internally for existing customers. It's really hard for us to take on customers and start things in November and December. We're talking to people, but they're typically starting at the beginning of the year. And so we don't do a lot of outbound marketing in November, December. So for us, it's a no-brainer to go, yeah, let's cut a postcard potentially for November and December. Let's just save that money and let's reallocate it to something else. So that's a really, really great way to kind of save a little bit of money on the EDDM side. That is it for today. I really hope that I addressed pretty much all of your direct mail questions. I know I didn't. Let's be real. There's always more questions. So if you have them, reach out. First and foremost, drop in the comments, because I'm gonna snoop there, and why not? Let's start a conversation there. Otherwise, go ahead and reach out, because let's see, where am I? This way. Email me, chat me up, whatever it is. I'm here to help, because direct mail isn't dead. It's not going to be dead for a while, nor is print. Trust me, it's not going anywhere. All of us love paper. Have you seen all the planners out there lately? But in all seriousness, direct mail and EDDM marketing are wonderful, cost-effective ways to get business to your business. But that's it for now. My name is Sarah, and I'm with Third Angle. Thanks for watching, guys. Hey, post-production Sarah coming in here. If you found this information helpful, please tap that like button so this video can find its way to others. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it! I share lots of marketing content just like this, without all the jargon. Okay, that's it for now. Have a great day, guys. Bye!